Hi guys, I'm Kasha. Welcome to our coffee times to discuss books in horror.
It's coffee time!
Today I'm here to talk to you about what the woods eat. And that is because there are so many stories in horror where people go camping, they go into the woods for a hiking in search of someone or something, a monster, to follow a trail. And a lot of those people never make it out alive. Some of them are never found again, other ones are found dead, and other ones do come back a little bit changed. After reading these Wretched Valley, I was thinking about other books and other horror movies that fit this kind of trope of people going into the woods, and then, like I said, they either don't come back, maybe their bodies are discovered days later, months later, a year later, or they do come back, but they don't seem to be the same person, or they might have taken something with them. Something might have attached to them and they bring it back to civilization. This is something that I love to see and explore in horror because there are also many explanations for this. It could be a creature feature, it could be something supernatural, it could be that the place is cursed. It might also be that there are some deranged people that live inside of the woods that kill others. It might even be something that goes in the direction of cosmic horror. It might just be an evil spirit, like you never know what's waiting for you in the woods. So I'm here today to give you 5 book recommendations and 5 movie recommendations of horror stories that happen inside of the woods. Born White by Ronald Malfi, and this is a horror author that I really enjoy because I really enjoy his writing. And in this particular story we follow Paul. He hears about the story of somebody disappearing in the same town where his brother had previously disappeared. So he is starting to wonder if it's something wrong with this place because, of course, his brother was never found, there were no explanations, and now he decides to go back to the town to try to figure out if it is the same case, if the disappearances are related. The town is called Dread's Hand, and it is a town full of superstitions. The people in town actually believe that the devil or some other evil resides in the woods, and everybody's really scared of the woods. Nobody really wants to go there. So what is the deal here? And maybe did our main character's brother go into the woods when they told him not to, and that's why he ended up disappearing? The people in town even believe that the devil that lives inside of the woods is able to steal human souls. So they put this kind of like wooden crosses at the edge of the woods in order to keep the evil away from the town. This is a thrilling supernatural horror story, and this one blends the supernatural together with a murder mystery. Hunted by Darcy Coates, and I chose this one with a purpose because when you hear the name Darcy Coates, you normally go towards supernatural haunted house, ghost story, and this one is a little bit more different. It's more of a survival horror and very different from the other ones, so that's what I wanted to put this one in this list. 22-year-old Eileen goes missing, and days later her camera is discovered in the same forest where she disappeared, and the camera contains footage like bizarre images that she took, but also there are images that were taken after her disappearance. Chris wants to believe that Eileen is still alive. The police at some point, after searching for hours and days, decides to give up, but Chris and some friends decide to do their own investigation and go out in the forest to try to find her, or at least try to find her body if it is too late for a rescue. When they go into the forest, at the beginning they stick to the trails, but then they decide to go out of the trails to see if that's, how they're gonna be able to find Eileen, and that's when they realize that there's something really weird in this place, and they feel that something or someone is watching them, is with them in the forest. And that's when they realize, that maybe Eileen's disappearance was not an accident, which obviously if somebody disappears, it's probably not by accident. Either you want to disappear or something happens to you and you are forced to disappear. So this was more of a crime thriller, which, like I said, it's not the typical Darcy Coates story, but it was very engaging and a very fun read. It's an engaging piece of survival horror, and it is one of those that is going to keep you guessing and very entertained. It also touches, of course, on the human emotions like, desperation, fear, hope, everything that you would feel when you're isolated in the middle of a forest. Brier Dark by S.H. Hadrian, and this is 2 stories that are tied together. There is a guy at university that it is studying a series of recordings that were taken by some hikers that were hiking on a glacier. So he starts listening to these researchers' recordings, and he starts to hear really weird noises and things in those recordings. We also, of course, follow the researchers' story, so the plot kind of like jumps back and forth from the guy studying the found recordings and the researchers while they were in their hike. This is survival cosmic horror, and it's all about trying to figure out what happened to the researchers through their own story, plus through the recordings that were found later on. It says that it's perfect for people that like Lost or House of Leaves. I did like both, especially House of Leaves. I know it's a hit or a miss for a lot of people, but I did really enjoy that book. People also compare this book to The Terror or to The Ruins, but this one also has an added kind of like found footage to it, which is something that I really love to see in books. It is a fun book, but do keep in mind that there is a second book after this, so I think this one ends up with a cliffhanger, just for people that don't like that. But the 2 books are out, which means that if you did enjoy this one, you can just jump straight to the second book. The Tent by Patrick Burke, and I wanted to mention this one because it is a horror novella, so for people that want something a little bit shorter, plus this one is a little bit bloodier, a little bit gorier. If you've ever read Patrick Burke, you kind of know what you're getting yourself into. We are in Ohio, in a very big area where it's perfect for campers and people that want to spend the night outdoors, go camping, and you just have to follow the rules and stick to the areas that are marked as safe if you want to survive. Because we all know that deep in the dark woods there are things going on that are unexplicable. We might hear noises, we might encounter creatures, we might come in contact with lost souls. Anything can happen to you in the wilderness, camping in the middle of the night, isolated from civilization. I love Patrick Burke's novellas and short stories because he's able to pack such a punch with short stories or with novellas. Like, he gives you all the horror that you want. It's not one of those novellas where you're waiting for a long time and then only 1 or 2 things happen at the end. Like, he knows how to keep the reader really horrified. This is a fun and creepy creature feature that takes place, in the middle of the woods, and also has a little bit of those kind of like campfire stories vibe to it. Moving on to The Watchers by A.M. Shine, and this is one that I have to read yet, and this is one that I'm really excited to read because by the sounds of it, it sounds like something similar to Bird Box or A Quiet Place. And I know the movie's coming out this year, and I really want to read it before the movie comes out. I think this was the movie that was directed in her directorial debut by M. Night Shyamalan's daughter, so I am extra excited for this. It is about a forest that it is not marked in any map. You already kind of know where we're going with this, right? People tend to drive there and then their cars stop working or they have some sort of accident and they are left stranded there. I love these, which also gave me vibes of this TV show that I have been loving. It is called From, and it's also about people that are driving and down a road that leads them to a little town, and when you get to this town, you're unable to leave ever again. So anyway, our main character here has the same issue. She drives down a road, her car stops working, she's forced to go into the woodland, and she hears the scream of a woman that is screaming to her to get into the bunker where she is if she wants to survive. So obviously she runs and she ends up in this bunker. They close the door behind her and she's really scared. She doesn't know what's going on, but it's gonna get worse. So Mina finds herself in this bunker and they have this huge wall that is basically made out of glass, and the electricity turns on at night so they're able to see what's going on outside, and apparently there are some sort of creatures that come out at night that are very dangerous. And those creatures, those watchers, they love to see the humans that are imprisoned inside of this bunker. Mina has a lot of questions. Who are these watchers? Why is this thing here? And nobody has ever said anything about it. And how is she gonna make it out of there? So I love the premise of this book so much, and I'm really excited to give it a shot. We're gonna move now to the movies, and I would be doing a disservice if I would not start by mentioning the Blair Witch Project. I was lucky enough to watch this movie in the theater when it came out, and I took my dad with me to watch this movie. I didn't know what to expect, but let me tell you, I have never forgotten the ending of this movie in the cinema at a young age. That ending, it will scar you for life. So you're welcome, because if you have not watched this movie, you absolutely have to. I mean, nowadays there have been so many movies that have tried to recapture what the Blair Witch Project gave us back in the day. They don't really get to be the same, and of course if you watch it now and you've never seen it before, it might not have the same impact, but I still would recommend you this movie anytime. It is also a movie that kind of catapulted this found footage subgenre of horror and made it so popular, so we have to be really thankful for this movie, because many other found footage films came out after it. The movie featured a group of young indie filmmakers heading out into the woods to explore local legends of the Blair Witch. However, what resulted was the group getting lost in the woods and then realizing something was out there tracking them. I think one of the best features about this film, it just felt really raw, really real. A lot of people that watched this movie thought it was a real documentary about something that really happened. This movie was also made with a really low budget, so it is a lot of not showing, but kind of letting you dive deep into these characters' psyche and the mystery of the unknown, the sounds, things that are in the shadows, and it is very creepy. There is some level of intimacy with the characters as well, because a lot of times they hold the camera really close to their face, so the fear and everything that they're going through isolated in the middle of the woods, with the legend of this Blair Witch that they think they have found and is hunting them now. Like, the fear is really palpable. This is one of those movies that really makes us suspend disbelief. We are really into the movie, into the characters, and we really believe what's happening to them is real. The Ritual, and this is a movie that was on Netflix some years ago, and I watched it. It is based on a book, and the movie is absolutely fantastic. The movie features a group of men heading out for a trip to a Swedish forest after one of their friends dies. However, while they're out, they realize something might be tracking them, and they realize they're all in danger. One of the things that makes The Ritual really special is that when the characters are in this forest, because they decide to take a different route, not the ones that they were supposed to take, but they wanted to get a faster route, and by that they go off trail, which is something, you know, it's a horror trope, but they do that, and we start to realize that the forest they're in starts changing, and it seems like they're even like going in circles, like, you know, at some point that there's not going to be a way out. So it's not just the dangers that might be inside of the forest, but also the forest is their own enemy, because it keeps changing them to trap them inside, to keep them confused. It has good creepy production design. I thought the characters were really believable, and it is one of those movies where you're gonna see that the characters sometimes are not making the smartest decisions, but it's also characters that are really scared. You can really feel the tension, the fear, and they are really realistic characters, which is something that I love. If you have not noticed yet, I love when characters are relatable and realistic, because it makes me believe the story a lot more. And you're also going to see these characters trying to figure out what's going on in this forest, what's happening to them. They don't even know what they're up against, and I thought this was a really well executed film. Moving on to another horror movie in the forest, we have Willow Creek. In the movie, a guy travels to a national forest in California with his girlfriend, hoping to get video footage of Bigfoot. They start off at Willow Creek, which was considered the Bigfoot capital of the world, but when they set up camp, someone or something destroys the camp and hangs their belongings from a tree. And after that, that's when the true terrors of the movie start. This is a found footage, slow burning horror flick that has a low budget, but it gets to show you how much you can do with a low budget because the director really understands, for example, the importance of sound and camera angles. And the director also kind of digs a little bit into the topic of why do humans always seek to find things that we know are better left untouched? Why do we have these kind of like need to discover places, to look for things that are maybe legends or, you know, cautionary tales? Why do we have to go and explore those things if we know that it's probably going to be dangerous? This is a really well executed thriller. It's a little bit of combination, I would say, like a documentary and a horror movie. And it is one of those found footage movies that it is a lot more about what you don't see than what you see, which is also very smart to do when you have a low budget film. I much rather have, you know, just little nuances of horror here and there and a lot of atmosphere and creepiness than have really bad CGI creatures and things going on all the time just for the purpose of showing something. Like if you have a low budget and you need to focus on what a horror movie is supposed to be, which is scare you, then I think this is the way to go. Then we have Backcountry, which is a Canadian survival horror movie that is actually based on a true story. In the real-life story, a man-eating black bear terrorized people in the backcountry of an Ontario national park. As for the movie, we follow a couple that heads out to hike, and the man refuses to use a map, believing he knows his way around. That is always a mistake, especially if you go to some area that is new to you. That is just dumb. But basically they start their hike and they end up taking the wrong turn, and because they don't have any map, things just get worse, and then they get into the territory of this black bear, and yeah, probably the bear is just hungry. I mean, it's fair. Critics really liked this movie and it called it really like intense and impactful. It has a very high rating on Rotten Tomatoes as well. I think the tension was really well achieved in this one, and I like that you understand the fear of nature and things that are in nature, like creatures and the wilderness and being isolated there, but it's also not kind of demonizing those things. I think what sets this movie apart from other movies with the creatures like bears and stuff like that is that the characters were really well fleshed out and it had really good acting, which is always really important in this type of movies, in my opinion. The only thing that I would kind of warn you about is that this movie can be a little bit gory, so just keep that in mind. And last but not least, I have a movie that I know not many people maybe love, but for me it's a classic, maybe because I watched it when it came out and absolutely loved it, and that is Wrong Turn. And I'm talking about the 2003 original Wrong Turn movie, not the remake, which, spoiler alert, I was not a fan of. I know a lot of people loved it, but I was really disappointed with it. It had nothing to do with the franchise. I think that's why I didn't like it. If they would have made the movie and would not have advertised it as part of the franchise, I think I would have loved it more. But yeah, there's my little rant. Let's get into Wrong Turn 2003, the only one you need. Friends Jesse and Carly are traveling with pals Scott, Evan, and Francine when they have car trouble in West Virginia. Moments later, motorist Chris crashes into their disabled vehicle. Stranded, the friends discover that they're being stalked by a horde of backwood cannibals. The woodsmen are hungry and fierce, and they'll be eating well unless Jesse and pals can outsmart them. While this movie might not be as good as The Hills Have Eyes, which was a similar plot film, I really did enjoy the acting of this film. I really did enjoy the characters, and even though of course there are some tropes when it comes to slasher characters and decisions that they make and all of that, I thought it was pretty good, and I would rewatch this movie anytime that I'm feeling like I need a good slasher. It's gruesome, it's nasty, it's a lot of fun, and you're gonna get everything that you want from a good kind of like slasher film of a group of friends are stranded in the middle of the woods and are being hunted one by one. People have said this might be a crossbreed between Deliverance and Friday the 13th, so you kind of know what you're getting yourself into. I thought it was a lot of fun. I would say that if you want to move forward with the franchise though, check the trigger warnings because as you go with the franchise, the movies get more and more disturbing and messed up, especially because of the villains of the story. That's all I will say. But do check the trigger warnings, because I remember I started rewatching this franchise with my partner because he had not seen the movies. I have all 6 of them in Blu-ray, and we were doing a franchise watch, and we had to stop, I think, at movie 3 because it was just too disturbing for him, which I understand, fair enough, fair enough. So just keep in mind that it might not be for everybody, but I feel like the first one is a good solid slasher movie. You need to count on some gore and stuff, and some disturbing parts, but the first one is still mild if you compare it to the rest. So yeah, that would be my recommendation. Watch the first one and then check triggers for the rest in case you need it. And those were 5 books and 5 movie recommendations of horror stories that take place in the woods/forest, and they all have different vibes to them. Some are slashers, others are supernatural, so there's a little bit here for everybody. So I really hope that you enjoyed the video. Let me know down below if you love this type of stories, and let me know if you have any other recommendations that fit this kind of trope of the woods eating people or kind of like putting people in danger, survival horror, isolation inside of the woods, all of that good stuff. Let us know in the comments down below. Thank you guys, as always, so much for watching, and I hope to see you all, as always, in our next coffee time. Bye!